All right, once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy to have all of you joining us this morning, and also Mr. Chee Seng, who is our speaker this morning. So, a little background about Mr. Leong is that he's a UI UX designer and Figma advocate with experience working in multiple fields such as education, cloud technology, healthcare, etc. So, in late 2019, he created a UX case study about McDonald's kiosk ordering system, which garnered great attention from the design industry. He also spoke about his design process in Google Devfest 2019. So Mr. Leong is currently a UI UX designer at Stampede Design, where he primarily focuses on UI design, user research, and most fascinatingly, design sprints. So it's a great pleasure to have you here, Mr. Leong, today to teach us on how to build prototypes with Figma. So without further ado, allow me to invite Mr. Leong to share with us how to build interactive prototypes with Figma. Mr. Leong, the floor is yours.
Yep, thanks, Debbie. Morning, everyone. I'm Chee Seng, so you can call me that. And so, Mr. Leong as well. So let me share my screen. Oh, desktop instead. All right. Just let me know whether my screen is visible. If not, just ping me. Okay. All right. So yeah, today it's about how to build prototypes with Figma. Not too long ago, I presented one in USM as well. You might see the same thing, but with extra enhancements if you were there at the USM hackathon as well. So don't be surprised at the same thing. Slightly different. So this time it's much more specifically on building prototypes than creating UI. So it's much more straightforward than last time as well, if you were there. A little bit about myself. I think Debbie has already given you the very high and also slightly low level introduction about me. I don't actually need to talk more about it already. I'm basically a UX designer at Stampede, and I kind of do UI design primarily because that's my strong skill set among all the other design spectrum like UX and stuff, and also design sprint, but mainly focuses on UI daily. So there are 4 parts to this talk today within these 2 hours. The first one is preparation work before the UI. So I still need to actually share with you guys what actually is the preparation work before we actually jump into UI. In actual design process, you would never jump into UI directly because that's just wrong. You can, it's just that your product wouldn't really make sense in the end. Now, preparation work involves 3 to 4 things here. I think that's only 3 things I'm showing. User flows, wireframes, and design patterns. So you might hear the same thing, design patterns in software engineering. They are kind of the same concept. Design patterns are reusable solutions that you can actually use throughout your software design process or actually implementation as well. So in this case for UI, it's actually reusable components or solution as well, visualize. And part 2 is about the fundamentals. There are a lot of fundamentals around the internet. I won't be presenting everything because we only have 2 hours. So mainly the easier ones to actually grasp in this session will be visual hierarchy, consistency, these 2. But if you actually search around the internet, there's actually a lot more. There are 7 design principles. There are design methodologies you can use, a lot. But today, to make things a little bit easier to absorb for you guys to actually build your prototype faster, these are the 2 things that you need to kind of be familiar with. And the third part would be making the UI feel real. So this is actually the building process itself. Of course, we won't build the entire thing, and I wouldn't show a full-fledged app as well. I'm just building a very, very basic one. Not the most beautiful one as well. But you get the sense of how I actually put components together. How I actually align boxes and shapes together, and also finally animations, because besides making the UI as well, you need to animate the UI to make it look like it's an actual app. And lastly, this is just like the additional stuff that you can actually learn. Besides Figma itself, besides designing itself, you can actually learn a lot more from Figma community and also Lottie files. So these are the two things I use quite a lot in my work. Yep. So there are 4 parts to this, and we'll jump straight into the first part. So first part is about preparation work before UI. As a lot of people will say, prepping for the UI work is actually 80% of the effort. Doing UI is only 20%. That's very true. You will actually notice that when you're actually focusing on doing UI, a lot of time are gone into specifying what is the user flow, how the structure would look like, the wireframes, than actually doing the actual UI. Because doing the actual UI is actually the easiest part of all. At least to me, if you're already familiar with that. So mastering the prepping work is actually very, very important and very, very helpful for you to build very beautiful and also useful UI. So what you're seeing here is actually not 1 follow, but 3 follow divided into 3 things vertically. So user flow, wireframes, and the design patterns. So these are just samples here. Now, what's user flow? User flow is basically a visualization of how the users move through the application or service to complete a task. So you might find similar things like journey map. They are not the same because journey map is not flow. It's actually the journey, the experience itself is very high level. User flow is much more low level, from login to sign up, and then authentication, what user receives, those are user flow, much more step by step. Journey maps, all this are much more high level and business-ish. Yeah, they talk to you about the strategy stuff. So they are quite big of a difference if you actually research it before. And at the same time, user flow itself will actually help you to calculate different screens as well. Like if you have an idea and then you want to actually build it, starting with user flow will actually help you determine how many screens there are to be built, because you're not actually building the UI yet, you're only identifying what are the pages. So at the same time, there are actually 3 points here. You want to check whether the flow is logical, because you're just kind of like mix and match around what is the possible flow from this screen to the other. And it also enables your team to think about what is the possible content of each of the screens. Now, what I actually practice at Stampede is slightly different from what you guys normally see on the internet. You will see diamonds and stuff, for example, like this. These are like conditionals, yes or no. If you can't log in, you go here. If you can log in, you go to the default path. For Stampede wise, we use more of a visual element. Basically, not only tags. Normally, you search around internet, there's only tags like products, and then the next flow is basically here contact. In the Stampede case, we utilize a very basic wireframe as the page itself, but it's not a wireframe yet. Yeah, because we want to know potentially what will actually happen. So that's what we do. And as I said before, calculate potential number of screens to be designed. In the real world, where we actually design products, calculating number of screens enables you to do 2 things. You predict how much time you need, whether or not you actually need to separate the entire project into different batches, because you cannot design everything at once. And also developer cannot build everything at once. So with this, you determine how many screens inside each batch, and then this batch can actually be designed and built first. So you actually separate up the tasks as well. Additionally, besides potential number of screens, this enables you to actually come up with user stories. So because for user stories, there are actually 2 things, user stories. Yes, it can also be for designers to know how many screens are there. User stories actually for developers to know how to actually build it. that can actually reference our UI as a visual guide, but user story is actually what they need to know to actually implement the function. So for example, in order to achieve this, user will need to do X to achieve Y. That's kind of like a very high level explanation of user stories, but it comes from the user flow. But this is of course not the main only method. This is just what I actually practice day to day. So that's user flow. Design patterns itself. Now, design patterns, again, you see this similar thing in software engineering. It's literally the same word, design patterns itself, and they actually also mean the same meaning almost. Reusable design components or solution that can be applied for common problems. In software engineering side, it's actually a reusable solution as well. So you have an algorithm that can be reused for various purposes or various problems, but you only tweak a bit. This is actually the same for design. Because design, you come up with a component, you can actually solve multiple issues with the UI. You can kind of tweak the component itself, maybe hide this kind of button, maybe hide this kind of tag, then it actually serves another different purpose. But in the end, they're actually the same thing. So there are actually overlap between the software engineering side and also the UI design side, because ultimately we're talking about software design. So it ties in well with actually software engineering, a lot of stuff. So because you need to save time, right? You don't want to recreate everything from scratch. That's why design patterns appear most of the time. And here, yeah, because most of the issues are actually solvable. When you look around the internet, you always see, for example, form fields. You can't actually go too special with form fields. You can become much more usable, but you cannot actually design something that is too nice but not usable at all, because there's always a format for password strength, password input. For example, how people actually do fingerprint scanning, how it notifies the user to actually place their thumbprint. Those are actually very standard stuff and process. That's why design patterns appear, because it's actually the same pattern for slightly different scenario. Yeah, so second point is actually serve as a design reference for a designer to come up with new solutions. As I said before, you don't actually need to create a new solution entirely. You don't have to design a wheel from scratch. You can actually come up from the existing one. Most of the time, it's not that hard because most solutions are actually the same. Most problems are actually the same. It's just they are displayed differently. So yeah, that's actually the first one. And then wireframed as well. So I'm going to talk about 3 things and then I'll show you how it looks like back in Figma. So for wireframes, also known as low fidelity designs, is actually to communicate the structure and layout of the interface. So we are not talking about the actual UI itself. We're only talking about the structure, layout, and also zone. So this is actually a very brief version, but technically speaking, this is what we always do daily before we jump into UI. So to communicate the hierarchy of the design elements within the interface. You can see here, you already see the structure itself, and then there's also a number. So one thing you notice that there's no 𝗨𝗏𝗡𝗂, this kind of unnecessary text or copy. And I actually do not encourage using 𝗨𝗏𝗡𝗂 even if you are doing a hackathon prototype or any other form of prototype, if you can. The reason, because if you use 𝗨𝗏𝗡𝗂, people won't actually get the idea of your app entirely. And then you're not also thinking about how copy will work. Most of the time, besides UI, copy and also content is actually kind of like 70 to 80% of your entire interface. So it contributes a lot because people read anyways. Instead of only UI components, it serves as a visual guide or visual element, but copy is actually one of the main UI elements inside inside an interface. So which is why making a copy makes sense. It's very important instead of using 𝗨𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗍. So and then an example here, I'm also not showing any 𝗨𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗍 as well because it's bad. Actually, people can't get the actual idea of what you're trying to deliver, and you're only showing the structure itself, which is not enough. And wireframes are serving as a guide, which later on in UI, you might actually change it in the end. Yeah. So it's not 100% you need to follow wireframe. It's just a good starting point for you to think about, yeah, the structure and the hierarchy. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, 3 things, and then we'll dive into Figma and I'll let you see how I did it. I need to reshare again. Where's my Figma? All right, here's Figma. All right, if you guys are in varsity last time, you might see the same thing, but I improved a little bit. I added extra stuff. Sorry, I think someone is not muted. Okay. All right, let's proceed. I assume you guys can see my Figma. Let me hide this first. All right. Now we talk about user flow, right? We always start with user flow first. And then we have construction area, which is the wireframe. In the example, I'm actually thinking about slightly new things as well. It's like a transport app. No, it's not like a transport app. Yeah, it's just an app that actually enables you to find the nearest bus stops and also what is the arrival time. Basically, move it. But I don't really like MoveIt's UI. So I actually just copy a new competitor to kind of replace MoveIt. In this example, I'm only showing very basic stuff. So home, then you go to transport detail listing, line details, favorites, places to go, and profile. Very, very simple. In the actual development or in actual process, you would see something like this as well. So this is like the kit we use. It's much more simple. Even the kit itself is actually considered simple to me. I can't share my work stuff because it's confidential, so you won't get to see it, unfortunately. But it looks more or less like this. And we also have a lot of more elements, such as who is the user and who is the receiver, any other contributing user group as well. So it's much, much more complex in the actual user flow. So here I actually designed it myself. You can see that I'm actually not utilizing the library entirely. I just pick some parts of it and then I come up with my own. So you have your library element, which is like an iPhone X-ish frame. And then I just create boxes and elements just to figure it out. Normally you shouldn't be taking too much time. You should be taking much time in terms of verifying whether the flow makes sense with your team, rather than whether what it is placed inside. Because that's not important for now. It's user flow, not wireframing or construction. So making sure the flow makes sense to you and the team is very important. In the hackathon case, almost every time I say this, you don't actually need to design your login if it's not necessary. And you don't also need to present your login, because login, everybody knows how login works unless your app is actually a much more secure way to log in for banks. If it's a very specific solution about login, by all means do that, right? If it's a login to kind of like a bus tracking app, Airbnb kind of app, I feel like it's unnecessary because everyone knows what's going to happen. It's nothing special. So focus on your solution, the flow, instead of all the unnecessary login stuff, sign up. Those things, people know how it works anyway. So the solution is much more important. And don't do everything at once. If your solution is about So for me, having to actually look into transport listing and also the line detail, these are actually the main one. I wanted to make a point, so I actually just you can actually access profile, places to go, but I don't technically need to design this at this point. You might have more screens than I am, so don't be confused that, oh, is this how it's gonna work now? This is just for example, I can't show everything as well. It will be overwhelming. So you can just put lines here to indicate the flow. Very, very simple stuff you can do. Yeah. And if you're asking about the kit, well, you can actually just find it as 𝗓𝗨𝗏 Pro Kit Gray. It's at Gumroad. Very easy. It's free, by the way, it's not paid. So you get all these symbols and kit together. I would customize my own version because sometimes if I want to look at it if I want it to look much more specific to my solution and I already know how it might look like practically, I will customize it just like how I show you. So we have map from the library itself, and then I'll just create shapes. If you're not familiar with library, I can show you a little bit here. So when you're actually using Figma, you can actually share library, but in your case, in your case, you might not have a pro account. So what I usually do is that if you guys are planning to do that UX flow, a very simple one for your hackathon project, you can actually download this, but put in the same file as here. So unlike how I do it, where I actually share the library, because this is actually a pro account, which I can share. In the free version, you can't share unless you are actually applying for student Figma, which you can get Figma education, which is a pro account for free for 2 years. So you guys can do that when you're students. Yeah, I'm not, unfortunately. So that's for user flow. You can do whatever you want. Most importantly, don't do it yourself. So if you're a team member, and then you just carve the flow itself. As I said before, don't focus too much on this. More importantly, the flow itself. And then if it makes sense, it's okay with everyone, we can actually proceed to the next step. The next step is actually diving into the screen itself. So there are one component here I didn't actually just screenshot Google Maps. I use plugins. So if you're a MacBook user, using plugin is // If you're a Windows user, I'm not sure, maybe it's called // if you're a Windows user. But of course, if you're not sure, if you do not know the key as well, you can always access plugins here. So resources, Figma actually already placed in the latest update. This one, plugins. Then you can search. These are all my plugins, but if you want to display maps, I use 𝗵𝗫𝗀. So if you run, I hope you can see this because it opens up a new window. Can you guys see it?
Yep, we can.
The 𝗵𝗫𝗀, right? Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't really detect your location because that's kind of like breach of privacy. Is a open source map API, but then we can always go back to Malaysia. It's not really that hard. So yeah, so for me, I'm in Cheras. I'm gonna show my location anyway, but somewhere here, and then you can adjust whether you want it to be 500 by 500 pixels. You can also even adjust whether it's outdoor, light, dark. If you're using dark mode, if your app is about dark mode, satellite, streets. You can also use pitch and rotation if you want to do it slightly different. I don't use that, not necessary for my work. And then we just create map. So let me zoom in a little bit more. You can already see, like, because we are actually looking at MRT and all these bus stop, right? you can already see that it's automatically listing the, for example, Sungai Jaya MRT. It's very convenient. I don't need to even do design for this one. I just create map. So create map, you can do this. Yeah, and then you just insert here. For me, what I like to do before jumping into construction as well is also to determine what is the goal of the screen. I only put one goal, but this goal is actually the entire app itself, is to enable everyone to plan their journey effectively by letting them know accurate public transport arrival time is wrong, the wording. So this is actually serving myself as a guide, know what I'm designing instead of just blindly going through the wireframing as well. So it's actually good to know the goal of each of the screens. You discuss with your team, you have your flow already. You determine what is the goal that this screen needs to achieve for the user. With that, you would actually speed through your wireframing quite effectively because you know what you're doing. But in a hackathon case, you have limited time. It also trains you how fast you can think as well, whether your goal makes sense. So if you want to try that, be my guest. If you don't want to try that, it's also okay. It's fine as well. So in my case, don't talk about UX stuff because this is bad. In this case, it's actually really bad. I just like come up with it on the fly, on my imagination as well. When you're doing construction, of course, you're not doing one thing. When you're doing construction, you need reference, you need ideas. So reference points is actually very important. Now, reference point. So for me, the app I actually like the most is actually, this is Citymapper, if I remember. Yeah, this is called Citymapper. It's not available in Malaysia, but it's available in our neighbors country of Singapore. It's very nice. It's compared to Move It. Move It is, I would say, functional to a point. You need to learn how to use it. I'm a person who doesn't like to learn stuff if it's possible, or very low barrier of entry. So this one, to me, besides it's nice, it has a personality, and it's quite clear to me what is the directions of using the app, where I can click and stuff. So Move It is just functional. It's not actually that specific in terms of guidance. So I like this. I actually decided to copy this particular one. Now, this is only one example. Usually, I would see multiple ones. Then I determine. But also do not fall in the trap that you just keep on finding it and then you place it here and then use it. You must find inspiration that you actually like. Don't find inspiration for the sake of finding inspiration. Like if you're building Grab and then if you're building grocery app, but then for example Happy Fresh, you actually don't like their UI, but it's actually a grocery app, then you take it. If you don't really like the UI, it doesn't really make sense for you to take, because first thing first, you're not inspired by the UI anyways. Second thing, you might end up designing the things that you don't like, and which is makes it harder for you to actually explain why you design it in the first place, because you're only plugging the same component. Yeah, and you don't know why you plug. So be creative and also be open that not everything makes sense. So you will actually just need to explore a lot here, and explore takes time. So I suggest you take like maybe just 30 minutes, just focus on grabbing all this inspiration for you to actually build the wireframes. So it will help you as well, instead of only just building wireframes based on your own imagination. If you're new, it's very hard because you're not used to how interface work. So you just spend too much time here. Wireframe is, as a reference, is not the direct guide for you to translate into UI, although in my case, I would actually directly translate. But you'll notice in actual UI, I actually tweak a little bit of the components as well. So here I quickly just do few things. I actually do not really care about whether animation will work at this point. For me, I would just do rectangles and stuff most of the time. It's just rectangle. I'll put it here. This is transport. I just name it. And then because it's a wireframe, I do not want people to focus too much on the UI components itself. Hence, I use gray color. Yeah. If you're starting to use colors, people will focus on this red is not nice when you're actually asking for feedback, which is quite a waste of time. So keep it simple, keep it very bare, but maintain the structure. So for me, I want it to have a header here, then maybe a place to search directly. This one, I'm actually imagining favorites or work or even home. And here is actually a slider, a horizontal slider, which I'll show how to actually make it later as well. And there's recently visited card as well here. Yep. And you have the home menu. I don't actually include icon because because I don't actually waste time just putting icons. If you want, you can. Yeah. But for me, I don't think it's necessary. Just list down what is specific in this page. And then buses as well. If you click here, what we'll actually see here as well. So the same map. And at the same time, I actually crop this map. You can actually do this if you want to zoom in view. So double click, you open this up, select crop. And then because it's sometimes really hard, I just move it here and then Option Shift. I'm not sure about how Windows will work. Sorry, but in Mac's case, I will actually hold down Option Shift to actually enlarge it like this uniformly. Now I'll pull it down. If you want a zoom effect. So, and then I also place like lines here. So finally, the last one is that I actually wanted overview of the station line or the stop line. So I built myself here, it's line. I'm using line here. So line is actually easier way. So I actually don't use line, I use pen to draw. So if you want to draw it itself, you can actually press on P, then you bring up the pen tool. For me, I will actually just drag, then I form here. There's actually a website that you can learn how to actually do this very easily. Now, if you notice, I'm actually not drawing like this. It's actually curved. How you can do that is that first, if you're planning to draw these curvy lines without actually adjusting later on, right? Is that okay? You press it here. Second point, hold down Command. For Windows, you hold down Control, hold the key. Then you notice my cursor changed a little bit with another icon. Then right now, you can drag. Yeah, that's how it looks like. And then connect it back again. These, and then these. It takes some practice if you want to do it continuously. All right, so let's try again if you want to do lines. Normally, the reason why I say hold down shift is that if you want to do curvy lines later, for example, this is a line, right? You will still need to hold down shift, but it's actually a manual process. Yeah, of course, it's much more accurate if you're a first timer doing. Yeah, so there's like 2 steps. For me, I'm used to it, so I can just hold. Yeah. So that's how you draw curved lines on the go instead of adjusting. Yeah. Now, of course, if you don't want to curve it later on, it's like you go from curve to straight lines, you still can, just don't apply and then, yeah, just go back. You just don't hold on the command key, then you can do it. So that's normally how I do it for lines that requires, especially charts as well, like line charts where you need to go wavy up and down. I will use this kind of method. So if you're doing charts or visualization, yeah, you can do that. So, and then we have the timeline itself. I recently had a project that's designing timeline, so it might look similar. So that's for wireframes. Let me check my slides. Yeah, so that's for wireframes and stuff. Inspiration I actually talked about already. Inspiration technically is your design patterns, because if you think about it, most ideas, like 95% and above of the ideas are the same. If you watch, for example, if you watch Y Combinator videos about product building and startup ideas, most ideas are duplicated anyway. It's super, super rare for you to come up with a brand new idea at this time and era, because you're not inventing something new, you're improving the process. So that's why you can see there's Grab, Uber, Lyft. They're doing the same thing, but they still exist in this day. But it's about innovation and also how fast you can actually innovate. Still, they're doing the same thing. SpaceX is about launching rocket, and then you have Amazon's Blue Ocean, which is also about launching rocket, but they're slightly inexperienced about launching rockets, but they are doing the same thing anyway. So don't beat yourself up if your idea is actually not the most special one. It's actually really about how much you want to innovate and how much you want to improve in terms of experience. Same idea can be better if you actually focus on the experience itself. If the process is smooth, then people will actually use it. Yeah, if there's demand, of course. Yeah. So that's all for user flow, construction area, and inspiration and design patterns. In hackathons, don't worry, you don't actually even need to go until this level, but really depends on how much you want to do, to be honest, because you're coding it as well. I'm imagining at least this kind of screen. So don't go too big. Be focused on what is the problem you're trying to solve, and also focus on your solution. All right. That's for part one. I need to jump back into my slides. If you guys have any question, note it down, then you can actually ask it later on. All right, UI fundamentals. So this is part two. So we have gone through user flows, and then construction, and also design patterns, inspiration. And next one is actually about building UI already. So the basics you need. As I said before, there's a lot of UI principles you can find on the internet. Reading principle is one thing, utilizing principle is another, and it's not a thing that you can master in one day as well. It requires practice. Yeah, and then when you practice hard enough, long enough, then it becomes a muscle memory that you can automatically just wing it anytime. That's what happens to me. So because to me itself, it's not I would say not I'm aware, but I'm also not aware that I'm actually already comfortable with the skill set. So sometimes I might say things that is actually biased to me. So let's see. All right, in terms of, there are only two things I'm talking about here in terms of the basics: visual hierarchy and also consistency. So for visual hierarchy, it's actually to create guidance for the user to follow with less effort. So for example, this is actually an actual landing page for from Full Story. I'm not sure what they do actually. Yeah, I just think that the landing page is very nice. Now, what is visual hierarchy here? Here itself, it creates a very good hierarchy in terms of where do I need to focus my attention to. They know how it works, and then they focus on the heading itself. So you would see the heading first, as always. Then some more, the content is actually quite, it's not too high, but comfortable enough for it to attract attention. So you can create hierarchy by doing three things: size and also color. Yeah, so the second point, you can create hierarchy through size and color. The bigger the size, the higher the hierarchy. The darker the color or the higher the contrast, the bigger the hierarchy as well. It attracts attention. So right now it's actually big, and also the contrast is actually high. So people will focus their attention here first. Then maybe later on here as well, and then here and here. So that's how the hierarchy works. So some more examples. So the Airbnb is a very nice, very well balanced UI, to be honest. Of course, they have a team of designers and they know what they're doing. And let's look at how hierarchy works here. They have their title here, which is slightly bolded, but also not too bold. I would consider this as semi-bold, or to them maybe it's medium. I think it's semi-bold. Because when the word is too thick or too bold, it's very hard to read. You will notice that when you try to actually implement bold to long sentences or headings that is actually too long, it gets a little bit too hard to read. Here, you apply the hierarchy, it's easier for me to scan. I know this is about sleeping, this is about what the place offers immediately. I don't need to look into the kitchen yet, or the listing yet. I just scan because it attracts my attention immediately. So applying hierarchy properly will actually guide user which to look at. On the right side as well, pricing is very important for people to know. So that's why it's actually bolded as well. And also, yeah, that's why it's actually much more thicker. Then you always have your CTM, which guides people to reserve. So that's on the business side, right? You always need to attract the user attention to make a booking, to make a purchase, something like that. That's why primary CTA or call to action, which is the button, it's always filled. And then when you go down to second and third level, it's either outline button, and third level, it's only the word itself. So the hierarchy gets smaller and smaller, and then the attention gets lesser and lesser. So that's like just some small info about designing buttons as well, if you want to know. Another would be Notion. So again, Notion is actually really easy to show you guys, because Notion is like mostly black and white. The entire design language is very simple and artistic. So for Notion, it's always black and white, but you can see they utilize hierarchy very well. Guides is always the heading, and then here slightly bigger, I think it's like 18 pixels or something in terms of the size as well. And then it's not actually that dark, because it's not the most important thing to scan first. Then you follow up by all the titles of the guides and then the description. Yep. Description cannot be too light, because right now their goal was for you to actually get a grasp of what it does, it guides, before you click in. So you can't be too light as well. If it's too light, then people can't see it. Yeah, so we can adjust that. I'll show you how to adjust contrast later on, because if it's too light, people can't see it. If it's too dark, it tires people. So the contrast. This is another example from Asana. Asana is like a project management app. I'm not sure whether it's an app or web app, but yeah, it's a project management tool. For them, they use size as a technique to create hierarchy even though they are not bolding their text, but they actually increase the size to tell you that this is the first thing that you need to look at. And then again, this is the first thing you need to look at and also get started. So this is technically a CTA, which is why they decided to kind of make it a little bit more apparent, although it's not like a fill button or an outline button, but they bold it anyway. Maybe it's a design choice overall. Yeah, so that's for hierarchy. Second would be consistency. So consistency has like three things here. Consistent design elements, like it creates familiarity. Familiarity means that you see the same things, you know what it does and how to interact with it, because it's actually the same component. If it's the same function but different component, people need to relearn again. So which goes into the second point I'm trying to make. It's predictable and shortens the learning curve. So people know how to interact and react to the particular design component. And from developers and also designers' point of view, it also keeps the design library manageable. We don't need to design button A is button A, button B is entirely different stuff, because it's unnecessary. I need to design two stuff and then developers need to build two things. Very, very unnecessary. So in this case, consistency in terms of user experience, it creates familiarity so that people can predict and shorten the learning curve. That's the goal. From the engineers and designers' point of view, it makes things manageable. So it serves both sides. So let's go back into Figma. We're actually going into UI already. Right. Wait, am I sharing? Yeah. All right, let's go back to Figma. I'm not going to talk about colors today, but basically, you always need to have a set of colors you want to choose from, neutral and primary. Yeah, I think you can figure that out pretty easily. Just small 101. You can use tint and shade. Keep it very, very simple. You either want primary color and secondary color. Don't go with like 3-4 colors. It will make your job very, very hard, and also your product very, very messy. It's too colorful. It's not art. It's actually very logical design. You're solving a solution, not trying to design artistic stuff. So determine the shade and tint. Basically, everything is white because it's actually the tint shade, and then you adjust the transparency here. So when you adjust the transparency, how it will work, it will be like this. You have your primary color, adjust your you have the same primary color, right? This is primary blue. I apply the transparent layout on top. You can see that it's actually a darker version. And then I would actually do something like this. So this is like something like this. Press I to trigger to open the toggle, color picker. Then you can just select. Then this is your shade. Yeah, that's how I do it. So that's how you create your shade, from the darker shade to the lighter shade. So starting from completely white, then you tone it down. You adjust the transparency, 90 until what's this, 0 or 5. Normally you won't use 0. 0 is basically white color, so which is this one. So for black color as well, if it's 0, usually you don't actually use 0. That's why it goes until 90% only, because 0 is pure black. Pure black creates too much contrast, and less interface requires that kind of level of contrast, unless you have a very specific function. So yeah, you don't actually need to go that black. All right. So for some of you who might be familiar with mask DNB, this is actually the same one. I'll actually talk about it later, but let's look into move around first. So this is actually quite bare itself. I'm not doing the actual full-fledged UI. So how it works is that in here, I included icons and all the other stuff here. And I also created additional button just to actually simulate it. Not too different from actual construction. Let me turn this off. But I also actually utilize shadows as well. So this is something new. So before that, depending on what phone you're trying to present, actually, because for example, iPhone has a notch, right? But the iPhone 14 has a dynamic island. I'm not sure how you're gonna design that. I haven't figured that out as well. But if you want, you can. I'm not sure whether Figma has the prototype. Oh, it doesn't have the iPhone 14 yet, so you guys are good. Yeah. So for me, I would determine the measurement first. So because it's iPhone, I would actually just determine it's 48 from above. So this is pretty similar if you want to do it like this. How you can do it is that you drag from here, the ruler, and 48. You can see it from the left side here. Yeah. How you can trigger ruler? Here. Yep. So view. Sorry, I'm actually accessing. If you're using on a Mac, the Macs. Let me share my entire screen instead. Then you can clearly see my desktop. Okay, you're seeing me, but okay. All right, so you're seeing my screen itself. So here, if you don't want to use key, which is actually Command R, not Command R, sorry, Shift R. You can also find it here, rulers. Disable. All right. So then it's 48 just to create space for this one. For me, this is 24. For Android, there is a guideline where it's 16. I prefer 24 because the extra white space gives more space to breathe. That's what I like. Yeah. So for me, I will just measure like this. Oh, I got it right in the first try. Okay. And then you can actually lock it. So just click on the ruler guide, right click, and lock it. You can already see the hotkeys you can learn on the right side. So just lock it so that it doesn't interfere with you. So you have your guide already. So when you do your component layout, you know the spacing. So I always use 8-point grid, not 8-point grid, sorry, base 8 or 4. So it's like it's always 16, 16, 16. It's easier to count, to be honest, instead of 10, 6. 6 is still fine. 10, 7, all this. It gets messy, very hard to count. So you have this one. Another thing I will actually do will also build the grid. Here we don't have a grid. I'll build grid. So by default, let's not use this one, right? Sorry. By default, if you add a grid, So we're adding a grid on this frame. You see this is the default one. So we're not using grid, we're using column. So normally for mobile, normally it's four columns. There is no restriction you want to use 12. It looks like this. It's actually a guide. Max it will be 6. Because the more columns you introduce, of course there's more columns, right? But you are basically also introducing more constraints for you or measurements. I'm not, depending on the situation, you might want to use 6, because if you are using, let's say, for example, 3 boxes, right? Then 6 might make sense if a lot of contents are arranged 3 by 3. Yeah. But usually it's always 4. So 4. Gutter is basically a space between columns. I would put, let's put 16. And margin is basically the margin here, 24 as well. All right, so you have a grid. I'm pretty sensitive to red color, so I would tone it down to maybe 3 or 4%. Because to me, it affects how I actually look at UI. So I will tone it down a lot so that I can see. And if you guys don't want it, you can just hide it or turn it on. It's very easy. You don't actually have to remove it entirely, just turn it back on. Yeah. Then for me, yeah, basically it's actually the same UI, right? So I just remove it. I'm using a lot of plugins here. So for example, this guy, I don't even need to insert image. I just draw a circle. Oh. So utilizing plugins is one of your processes in designing Figma as well. Plugin is this Unsplash. In order to add picture inside, you have to select the object first. Then you click plugin. If you don't select the object, you will just add a photo on top of your design. So it's just a photo. And then let's say I want to say Asian. And this guy. Yeah, for example, and then I choose this guy, it will automatically load here. Very easy. You don't even need to do all the stuff. You don't even need to bother about that. Now, if you want this person to be slightly much more focused on their face, again, you can crop it. Here, just click on it. Right now it's still crop, adjust inside. Oops, I'm touching the. So hold down Option and Shift. I think Windows is alternate and Shift. If it's Windows, alternate and Shift, and then you can just drag. So right now it's focused. Yeah, it's very easy. If you are doing profile pictures, just Unsplash plugin, run. That's it. All right, and then I want to remove this one for clarity. So here you have shadows. Because if you do not apply shadow, this is how it looks like. So it blends in with the background. Either you apply a very soft background color or you apply shadow. Yeah. So this, and then this one I'll talk about it later. This is actually animation based. You will notice there's actually a cutoff area or offset area, which you can actually scroll. So some of you guys in varsity already experienced that, but this time is actually 2-step only, which I show later on. And then UI is actually pretty straightforward unless you want to build components, for example, like this. Okay, so this is good, right? I have local components, which is the same thing. I built local components here. For example, this is basically the same concept of software engineering as well. You have your component and you have your instance. If you're learning Java, I'm not sure whether you can still teach us that. There's always instances. So this is actually the instance. It's actually the empty diamond. The main one component, it's the full diamond. That's what I call it. It's actually that's what Figma calls as well, diamond. So that's the component, and then insert is the you can it's reusable. So you copy here and something like that. So these are all instances. And if I want to go back to a component, I can go back to here. Any changes to component affects the instance. So that's how it works. Now the same thing with if you're designing, if you're coding inside component, if you code there and you push it, instances will change. But then in software engineering sense, that's a little bit much more complicated than that. So Figma is simplified. Figma was built by engineers to begin with. Yeah. So how you can make a component is that, let's say I detach it, right? So detaching it is actually, I cannot detach the master component. I can only detach instance. So because detaching is option command B. Option command B, Windows might be alternate control B, might be, you can try. So, and then to create a component, there are two ways. For me, shortcut would be option command K, that's my shortcut. Another is you can actually do a command slash or control slash here, open up Figma's kind of like command line menu. Then you can say create component. Yeah. So here is the shortcut key. You create component. Ta-da! Yeah, you have your component here. I'm not gonna talk about this one today. This is actually a little bit much more complex. I forgot what it's called. It's component, but then it's also slightly much more advanced. It's a grouping of components. But yeah, I'll figure out the name later. Forgot what it's called. But I don't think I'm teaching it today. It will be too complex. Right. I'm not gonna build the UI already. It's already here. So here, and here. I'm gonna teach you how to actually build the slider later on when we talk about animations. This one is still the same, and we have this one. It's scrollable, zoomable. You can zoom. Either way. Yeah, so that's how I actually kind of design UI quickly. When I actually go through the animations, then I'll show you how I actually do the zooming effect. Some of you might have seen it, but this one is like slightly upgraded versions. All right, let's go back to the slide. Let's stop to there more time. So making a UI feel real. So the beauty of prototype without having to code. Yes. Last time you still have to code it out in order to look like this. But because of how advanced cloud technology and computing work right now, so web application, you really can build almost actual UI if you spend enough time animating. Yeah. Basically what I said, right? It's very simple these days to make actual UI without code. But you also see a lot of no-code tools nowadays. Not at the right level yet. The best one I see is still Webflow, but that's building websites and also web applications. Certain web applications, not advanced one. Of course, coding is still needed, but if you want to get the idea out quick, Figma, Sketch, I'm not sure Adobe still exists for the XD. Adobe just bought Figma, but yeah. So that's if you want to get the idea quicker, if you want to test it with people quicker, you can always do it with prototype on Figma. It's much simpler, and then it actually produce actual results if you're not using Lorem Ipsum, of course. So again, no Lorem Ipsum. The big no for me. Yep. All right. So I think the last one would be, so not the yeah, the last one would be the animation, which is the most exciting thing of today. Let me reshare. Right, animation is going to be the same one because you can only do so much difference. There are few things to do animations or prototype animation. You actually go here. This one. Because I'm showing like 101, right? My device is none. Then I set animations here, for example. So on click is basically mouse clicking, or on tap basically phone. On drag is basically dragging, and also smart animation, which is one of the best thing ever. And also on drag here. Let's look at the very super basic one. Click goes here. That's easy. So basically, you're just doing something like this. From this screen to this screen. So you drag here. When you're in prototype mode, of course, on click, navigate to what? Smart animate. But there's actually nothing to animate as of now. It's instant. Wait, yeah, it's instant. Just now it's instant. So it will go directly here. So if we look at flow 2 on click with dissolve, so what is dissolve? If you click on arrow, you can find out the prototype details. Dissolve is basically like this. You can actually, in Figma, you already see the preview, how it will look like. So A to B, A to B. You can also adjust the timing, whether it's is out, in, is and out. So 500 is like 0.5 seconds. And then you go here, slightly different, right? So instead of instantly seeing the block to be there, it kind of dissolves in the background and then eases back out from the background. So let's see it again. Yeah. Of course, the best one would be this with smart animation. So how does it work? So same thing, but I just turn it smart animation on. It's eased out as well. But this time, instead of a square, it turns into circle. Very smooth, right? It's pretty smooth here. However, smart animation, there's a certain limitations to smart animation as well, which I'll show you as well. So don't be too excited and happy. So yes, you can actually change the shape and color. If you want to go advanced, something like this for smart animation, for something like this, like there's arc here, loading, or the progress. So how you do that in the first place? So basically, you can actually do here, just if you guys want to do that radial thing as an arc here. Like this. Go back to design. Arc here. Do this. So there are a few things already, right? Few things you can trigger. And do this. You're controlling the radius. No, so the ratio. And if you don't want the edgy sides, then do this. So this is the curve area. Yeah. Now, this is actually the same thing from this one to this one. I apply smart animate. Let's see how it happens. Will it zoom right? No, it doesn't. So it becomes like a dissolve kind of thing. So that's actually the limitation as well. So there is certain limitation of how smart animate can work. It controls position, sizing, but not the form of the component itself. So there is certain limitation to it. Yeah. So you can't actually do this. So even if you actually do it something like this, much more simpler than this one, you still kind of look like a dissolve animation because Figma can't actually process that yet. If they are able to manipulate object at that vector level, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, but I think it's a soon to be function, hopefully. So that's for very basic stuff. Let's go into a slightly much more medium level. I wouldn't say medium level, slightly higher, level 2. So this is drag. So drag looks like here. So let's look at here. So on drag, I have two things here. One is this and also the background here. So there are only two things. I wanted to on drag. Let's go to prototype. So I wanted this one to be draggable and then turn to this one. So I pull it here. This is on click, on drag, navigate to. You need to choose Smart Animate in order for it to look very smooth. Then if I want to go back to orange color, on drag again, go back here. This is on click by default. Turn it again, also Smart Animate. So I'm dragging, I'm not clicking. Look at that. You can even see in between. Very, very smooth. Can you imagine you're coding this one? No. Yeah. So that's one thing. All right. Now this is on drag, but then it's a carousel level, so it's slightly much more advanced. On drag, I need to build some, yeah. So in order to do this dragging animation, there's a lot of I would say keyframes you need to do in order to look like very smooth. Yep, that's how it looks like. If you notice my cursor just now, I can go forward, I can move backwards, and then I can't move anymore because inside the prototype it's always moving forward. I can't actually move backwards. Yeah. This backwards, that's why I actually create a space here. It's because I actually intentionally create a drag and then it moves back. But then it can't happen. Yeah. So that's the dragging works. It's two layers. One layer is this one, and then a layer is the cutoff point. If you do this, it will look like this. Limitation is the zooming effect, which we'll see in the maps. So for zooming effect, let's say you want to zoom it like this, right? If you click on click, it will look like this. Yeah. How it works is that these two things are actually the same things. So for example, what I mean by same thing is that there are actually three dots here. These three dots here are actually the same dots here. So in order to do that, in order for Smart Animate to work as if it's zooming in, right? I need to duplicate the same one. This one, I need to enlarge it, move it, move it, move it. If you want to change color also, you can. Let's change color, primary. And then prototype again, go here, then higher one. On click, navigate to Smart Animate. Ta-da. Yeah. So manipulating the size and color, Smart Animate can do. But in terms of shapes, for example, this tree is particularly advanced for Figma to handle. It will look like this. Even though I draw it one by one from the same kind of like branch. Yeah. Even though I draw it from the same one. So Figma can't process that. So that's a limitation. If you want to go like super specific and super fluid and animation from a vector point of view, I don't think you can do that. And this is just the color is actually the same thing. So that's like the basic one. I'm not sure whether you're overwhelmed yet. But let's look at the actual one here. All right. Now, in terms of what we learned here, then we apply here. So just now, there's no device, right? Here, I'm going to use device iPhone 13 Pro because it was actually iPhone 13 Pro, the frame itself. So prototype already linked it, play it around, so it will look like this. It'll look like this. Yeah, so that's the horizontal scroll. Go back inside. So we have the map here. You can also vertical zoom. So this is like the current bus stop, right? And this is like the one that has passed. If you want to scroll to the next one, you can, but it won't show you first. But what I want to do, I want to actually type on BMC mode. Then show me. Now let's look at that. If I want to tap on map, I want to look at this one. You can also do that. Yeah. Now it's not as smooth as I want it to be, but actually I can do that, which is something I didn't try before. Now, if I tap on map, it doesn't scroll, right? I actually can do something like this. If I tap on map, I want it to scroll. So let's do this. All right, so scrolling, the zooming effect. So here, the map zooming effect, duplicate the same screen. As I said before, it needs to be same component, same frame, 75, 75. If you start renaming 76, it won't recognize. Then you wouldn't end up with the zoom effect because it's actually not the same thing. So I would want it to be, actually I shouldn't need to do that. I would only need to do, okay, it's already zoomed. You click here. And then I will apply. So we turn on the, so this is the one. Tap navigate to smart animate this page, but I also want the scroll effect. So if I tap on this particular dot here, because it's actually the next station which is not active yet, I need to scroll instead of just appearing. You can put another page. What I would do is this page. This is the advanced level I'm talking about. So this is like just extra stuff if you want to learn. Select the entire page itself, move it. Ooh, say this frame. Oh, it's actually detecting. Okay. On tab, this is after delay. After delay means that after 800 milliseconds, it will do something. So it's like automatic. In this case, I want it to be quite quick. So 0.2 seconds, scroll to frame 4. No, I don't want to scroll to frame 4. I want to scroll to here. So let's see what happens. Animate. Linear. Why is it? Yeah, linear. Okay, let's see whether it works. I have never tried before. Ah, yes, that's it. So it works. It's just I need to perfect it. So that's how you do that as well. So there's 2 steps. It goes here, it's zoomed already, because that's that's the first one. And then the page itself is after delay. So it scrolls to particular. I need to target basically this one. Or you can actually do something like this as well. Target this one, scroll to this particular one. Let's try again. Yeah, so it scrolls to this particular word only. If you want, you can also adjust the Y offset, the vertical offset, if you want. For me, I don't think I need. I just need to do the rectangle. Then if I click here, sorry, this one. Yeah, it looks like this. If you want a much more fluid experience, you can adjust the delay. No, you can't. It's too fast. This one I think can be 800 milliseconds. Yeah, something like that. Now if but it's not focused, you guys will ask. So we do it again. This time it's this one is focus. Oh wait, this one is focus. Yeah, you need to do another screen to do it. The problem with that, oh, you can't. Yep, you can't. Because it's actually a new animation. So that's how it works. So that's one, a very advanced level one, if you can already remember. Right, the scrolling, the horizontal scroll, which is something that you see in a lot of apps these days. Horizontal scroll, one of the most popular interactions. Doing it is very, very easy actually. Let's see. I'm going to do it from scratch from here. So let's say you have component here, you have bus. What is it? Here. I'm going to disable this because it's hard for me to see. So you have bus component here, here, and then here. In terms of experience, this is not good. In terms of user experience, this is not good because this is actually very focused right now, and then technically nobody gonna notice this. So either you decrease the width of this particular card, or you decrease the space between. You can try decreasing the space between. 10, this is not good already. 12, still can't see a lot of stuff. So I think we would decrease the space between the space itself. So let's see. Let's put 24. 24. So right now we can keep 16. 16. Okay. Right now it's very eligible, right? So I know there is something I can scroll. So there's something to pick. Now, in order to do the scroll effect, there are two things you need to do. First, you need to frame it first. There are two frames. Option Command G or alternate Control G. So there's this one. That's first level. Okay. And then you go into Option Command G again. So there are two frames. Yeah. Hold down on Command or Control key. Drag it here. This one, drag it here. Look like this, and then you click content. Because if not, let's say you play this prototype. Yeah, let's say you play this prototype. Oh wait, this is not. You need to enable horizontal scroll in prototype. Yeah, you need to enable. So you play this prototype. Looks good, looks good. Looks good already, right? There's one problem. So notice the 24 pixel spacing on the left. When you scroll, there's no spacing. Not nice. Not perfect enough. So people are questioning why this one here. So there is a solution. because if you notice this one is actually a spacing 24. How we can do that is that inside the second frame, the inner one, this is the one that is wrapping the original one, right? Increase the width by 24. So 400 here is 400 plus 24 here. So there's like the width here. So or how you can see this view, it's actually Command Y, Control Y, I think, outline. So I always use this view to see everything. Looks like you're doing some high-tech stuff, but it's just basic. Yeah. So you play your prototype again, play buttons. Ta-da! Now it's actually the actual spacing. Yeah. Very convenient. Very nice. You can keep on increasing until whatever you want. It's just that it's always 24 when you scroll, right? So yeah, so that's all for the horizontal. And then lastly is the map. I actually talked a little bit about it already. If you want to zoom it, you just need to drag it itself. Look at how I actually drag to zoom it. So additionally, this is like the new one, right? Newer one, much more simpler one. Since we have like 30 minutes, like I can show last time that one as well. So this is Mars B&B back in 𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗍 Hack. Same idea. So it's like this. This is also the same one. So we see it in the one-on-one just now. You're basically dragging the image larger in the second frame and then apply this one. And then for this one, you can drag. Yeah. So now I'll do this one. Is that you first you already need to have this one on the previous screen so that when you apply Smart Animate, it goes up. Yeah, it goes up to a certain to this height, and then inside is another frame where you clip it off and make it only this part vertical scroll. Yeah, and then finally this one. So this is basically the one-on-one, not one-on-one, the one-on-one that we talked about just now, the carousel. You notice the small effect of enlarging as well if it's focused. Yeah. So I need to do two things here, 2 times. One is going to the right, and another one is going back to the left. So in order to do that smooth back and forth, you need to do all this. So if you have 4 photos, technically you have 8 screens. Yeah. In order to do that kind of back and forth. Yep. So, and then because it's a scroll, it's actually a long image. So let's see. You see, inside is actually 4 images. So when I actually put on the second one, oh, this is actually so much better to visualize. Yeah. And then third one, I keep on dragging it, right? Dragging the third one, and then fourth one. So you notice how I actually move the inside screens one by one in each of the screen itself. Then the easiest thing is I just apply on drag and Smart Animate. That's it. And then if you want to go back, so we go back, right? So we move back here. We cannot move back here. So we will need to do an entirely new set just to move back to the front. Yeah, so that's how it works internally. This is pretty smart. Maybe in the next talk, I'm going to use this kind of layout. So you can see the inner engineering behind all this. Yeah, and then this one. So the zoom happens like this. So this is like the original picture. Then because it's zoom effect, internally is actually wider because it's zoomed into this specific station. And I think that's it. I would actually save up more time for questions. Let me go back to my slides. To be honest, there's actually nothing much in the slide. The last part would be part 4. Basically utilizing other resources, finding inspiration from other designs from others to design better. So I use these two things quite a lot, even in my work or even doing this particular presentation as well, or the workshop. 𝗨𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗏 is quite famous these days, and it's quite user friendly as well. I mean, there are some bugs here. So 𝗨𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗏 basically what it does is that it's actually a platform that enables you to convert animations into code. That's pretty good, because normally you need to animate if you want to animate certain stuff on the web, you need to code it out, and then that takes a lot of time, especially all these keyframes and stuff. 𝗨𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗏 does that for you with high quality. And then another one is Figma community, which is something that I will show you later on. So there are two things that I'll show you. 𝗨𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗏 also has a plugin on Figma, so you can use that. But I think it's still in progress for Figma plugin for now. But basically, you can use it to add functions. So let me show a little bit about Figma community. By the way, because you guys are students, you guys can actually apply for Figma student and you get the pro account for, I think, 1 to 2 years. It's more than enough, to be honest. So yeah, for example, this one. So you're verified for Figma education ready about grade. This is actually education because I'm teaching. Yeah. Honestly, so basically like this is actually a team account. So Figma community you can access here. And this is what it looks like. It's like a community of designs and plugins created by fellow designers and developers you can use. It's open source, so you want to kind of like remix it, basically duplicate and create it your own, kind of like GitHub, to be honest, GitHub for design. You can. So there's a lot of things I'm using here these days. Design systems, there's basically tons of it. There's no need to be afraid that you run out of design ideas. Yeah. So that's one. Even plugins as well. Try it out. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do very, very fast these days with Figma, and also the community side. You basically don't have to even Google a lot. You just technically Google inside the Figma community, then you're done. So yeah, it's a very good tool. I believe it will benefit a lot if you want to actually use it as a quick inspiration for a prototype later in a hackathon. It's much more quicker. Last time we need to search around Google. We are dying. And another one would be Lottie files. Let me reshare. Lottie file is in browser, so I need to do that. Okay, back to my slide, but then I want to say Lottie files. Okay, already signed in. So I created some animation myself as well. Yeah, for example, here I created in AE After Effects. So it's basically like a GIF, but then you can actually test animation for mobile, animation speed. You can download, when you download, it's 𝗨𝗏𝗃. So, or you want to customize GIF. I don't think you can customize GIF. Wait, because it's my own, yeah, you can. But if it's others, for example, others like my dashboard, because you can use other people's 𝗨𝗏𝗃 animation, as long as it's not under the paid accounts. So for example, this is other, I didn't create this one, it is other people's one. I can only download the JSON instead of exporting as GIF or MP4 or WebM. So that's a barrier. But if you're using it as a code for JSON, look, using JSON as a website code, I think it's fine, because it's really, really convenient. You just download the JSON and load it into your website. Yeah, you can access it in Figma as well. So I think that's pretty cool and pretty fast. Everything is fast these days. So yeah, I think that's all for my part. Yeah, I've already shown you guys. That's all for the day. Thank you. If you want to find me, talk about design and also community and also a little bit about dev. I don't really do dev anymore. Much more design part. You can actually find me through this handle, 𝗨𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏𝗏98. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, I think is all the same handle. So yeah, you can find me there. Yep, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Chee Seng. Thank you so much for the knowledgeable and interesting sessions just now. Once again, to all our participants, you can actually leave your questions for Chee Seng in the chat box so that he can answer it in the following Q&A session. All right. It looks like you already have questions coming in, so I think we can straight up enter into our Q&A sessions. Okay. So for the first question, Chee Seng, can you recommend any tutorial videos that you found useful and beginner friendly for like newbies, so that they can refer to when they are preparing for this online hackathon? Yeah.
Let me think. Tutorial video. I don't actually do much tutorial videos personally. I apologize for that. But there is a few things you can start with. Nice ones, I would say. There's a channel in YouTube called Design Plus Code. Yeah, you can literally type that in, Design Plus Code. And then they will actually have 1 hour sessions that is guiding how to actually do design, UI design, and then coding it after that. But then the thing I do not like about that one is that the style is always almost the same, but the variety is there. It's very different, but style-wise, color-wise, it's always the same. That's the thing I do not like. But in terms of starting out, I think they are one of the good ones. Also, because I mean, I think most of you guys are from software engineering background and also computer science. Free Code Camp YouTube channel used to have front-end development courses. Right now, there's like Figma 101, literally. And then they will taught you how to build design components from scratch. What is this and that. I think that's pretty cool. It's like 3 hours. It used to be like 3 hours of coding front end. Right now, it's 3 hours of designing UI components. So I think that's very beginner friendly, especially Free Code Camp's content. So I think you guys can start there, because their coding tutorials is already good. And I watch some of their UI tutorials as well. I think it's actually quite beginner friendly. So you can start there. Free Code Camp channel. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So Free Code Camp channel it is. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So what do you think are the some major mistakes where beginners make when designing?
I would break it down into a few parts here. There will be a lot of different mistakes that you will make as a beginner, but in different stages. But let's talk about UI, right? Since we're talking more about UI today. In terms of UI, when you build something, it's never about how it looks like in terms of UI. It's not about how aesthetically pleasing. Of course, that's a requirement. But because we are designing software, software needs to be functional, it needs to be logical in a way. So making it too beautiful will kind of destroy the purpose. And that's a challenge if you're coming from a graphic design background, to be honest. Another challenge is that if you're coming from an engineering background, which I do, technically I'm not, kind of like software technical background, I would say, not engineering, technical background, you will actually see a lot of things from a logical standpoint at first instead of only aesthetic. So that requires time. That's not a mistake, but you will make it will limit how you think. So what I suggest is that don't stick to what you know before, and always be open to learning new stuff and accepting new ways. If you're coming from a technical standpoint and have no experience in graphic, learn about graphic. And if you're coming from a graphics standpoint, learn about how software engineering works, then it will actually help you in designing software experiences. Mistakes, there will be a lot, to be honest. I cannot actually list down. You will need to experience it yourself. Most of the time is thinking too narrowly and not thinking in the bigger picture most of the time, right, if it's a beginner. But then I feel that that's a mistake that all beginners will have eventually. So it requires time for you to train. You just need to keep on practicing and asking the right questions. If you do not know, just ask question, practice a lot more, then your design sense will eventually you would become something, I would say, unaware competence. For me, sometimes I'm not aware I'm competent. So sometimes when I explain stuff, I already know what it works. But when it comes to explaining, I might be bad, but I kind of know how it works anyway. So that's the competent part, but I'm not aware. So you can train until that part, then it's really good. Yeah. So to summarize it, mistakes can be a lot. I cannot say what it is specifically. Different parts of design portion, UX has its own mistakes you would face. But then what is important is that you need to really learn and listen from what people recommend you to do, and then start from there. So mistake is confirmed. You cannot run away. So you either accept it or you don't do it. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. So where can we refer to more UI and UX templates? Like just now you mentioned about Figma community. So do you have any more suggestions on like the UI and UX templates that our participants can use?
To be honest, it's still going to be Figma community, because that's the easiest and most reliable. I wouldn't say most reliable one. It's the easiest way to enter. If you want to be more specific, I would really think you would need to really find it yourself on Google. But community basically solve 80 to 90% of your problems most of the time. And the templates from community are not just like simple templates. A lot of people are building very advanced stuff.
Okay.
So you can basically just utilize community to its maximum potential and still have a lot of room to improve your own design. So I think you can start there. And then if you really think that community doesn't benefit you, then you might want to search on Google. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So moving on. So are there any examples of design which look great but are actually not so practical?
Well, you tell me a list now, right now. I'll give you one example. Okay, not example per se, but sometimes we find inspiration, like we find inspirations just now, right? Like Citymapper is actually an actual app that I like, functional, looks nice as well.
Mm.
There are some that you might also heard about finding inspiration from Dribble. So Dribble is like a design curation platform. Yeah, design curation platform. It does a lot more than curation. Dribble is one of the best example I can say is that it looks nice but not functional, or it doesn't really solve the specific business goals. You go to Dribble, it's very inspiring one. You can see, wow, this design is very nice, color is nice, but when you actually really think about the flow, right, it doesn't really make much sense. If you're really building a product for something, for a business, or you think about the flow, how it works, it doesn't make sense. So Dribble is one of the best examples that there's a lot of nice design, but practicality wise or logical wise, most of the time it doesn't make sense. However, with that said as well, it's still a lot of aesthetically pleasing design there, but you need to know how to judge them. In terms of flow, might not be the most useful one, but in terms of aesthetic, you might get some ideas. Aesthetic wise, yes, you might look beautiful. Functional is not only about whether a flow makes sense or the hierarchy makes sense or not, the contrast as well. Sometimes design looks good, but the contrast is very bad. That one is a confirm kind of no already. If you're doing a medical app or like a, for example, doctor's booking consultation page, you notice some design that is using blue color and white color, but then their contrast level in terms of description text and labeling is actually very low. And then for people who is using medical apps, most of the time they are like middle-aged people or people who is slightly older. They have reading problems. They have difficulty in reading, and also maybe you might have like color blindness issue as well. So that is all these considerations we are making when designing, not just aesthetically. So Dribble is one of the examples that it looks great, but practicality wise, it really depends. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think last question will be can you recommend some useful plugins that participants can use in Figma?
Okay. I think I'll share a screen instead for this.
All right. Sure.
Let's see. Okay. Plugins, I use a lot of plugins. So let's see. I mean, these are a few. Let me see our plugins, please. Because plugin is so easy to download, it takes money, so it gets a little bit safe. Oh, this is literally every plugin I have. Okay. All right. There are a few, but let's look at the recent one we use. Unsplash, of course, definitely you need that. Mapseeker is map. Image tracer. Ooh, image tracer is actually interesting. Image tracer lets you convert image into vector graphics. However, depends on how clear your image is to begin with. If your image is not clear, the vector graphic is not as detailed or not, it won't come out as you want. Contrast and use contrast is actually quite good. However, use contrast has a little bit more function. Okay, so let me demonstrate what I mean. If I run contrast, technically speaking, this is actually bad contrast. If I select this, confirm fail. Yeah, I kind of already know that, but looks nice. That's basically aesthetic over functionality, right? So most of the time we use this to measure. Normal text, because normal text is like less than 24 pixels, right? It's already failed AA standard and also AAA. So AA and AAA is like the WGSC guidelines for usability. I'm not gonna dive too deep about what it is in general, but you can search it on the web. Is what is AA and AAA and also WGAC guidelines. You can usability guidelines. You can do that. It fails. Now, how I would do is that I will adjust from this point or adjust here. Then, yeah, right now it looks better. pass because the contrast is good. Actually, this one is better. Yeah, it is better. I should have used this one. Another plugin I recently found out is use contrast. Also contrast, but is that you can actually swap. So 𝗕𝗏𝗏, right? Initially it's like this. You can actually swap. It will control your color. This is quite useful to me. Yeah. So it will go up from fail to 𝗕𝗏𝗏 certified stuff. But you can adjust Yeah, you can adjust, which is something I like the most. So and then you can adjust like this. I like this a lot. So find and replace. This is something very nothing I talked about it already. Find and replace is also very interesting. So if I want to change word, basically I'll just find and replace because you can't do find and replace on Figma by default. So that's quite unfortunate, but I hope that do it. And confetti is basically if I do graphic design, I would just randomize it. If for this one I want to randomize this one, I can no, it must be a layer. Okay, I need to layer this, then layer, then randomize it. Frame. Can I frame this? Okay. So yeah, randomizer. But this is quite graphic design-ish things. Actually quite nice for a magazine. But yeah, anyways. Randomizer is what I use for graphic design stuff if I want to have all these confetti design patterns everywhere. I use mostly these kind of things. What do I have else? Nothing else I use too much. The others are quite less. Charts itself. Basically just creating charts. Can I still run it? No, it requires a lot of memory. Yeah, that's basically what I use almost every day.
Okay, thank you so much, Chee Seng, for sharing those very useful plugins. I think we are done with our Q&A since we don't have any questions coming in. So thank you so much, Chee Seng, for providing with us, all these amazing tips and tricks, and even answering the questions of our fellow curious participants. And we're very grateful, and it is our utmost pleasure to have you with us today. So we hope that all our participants have already gained a deeper understanding on building, prototypes and on Figma, and even know more about UI and UX design. So before we end this Equip talk, it's now for photography session. So we would like to invite everyone to turn on your cameras for a group photo session with Chee Seng. So kindly turn on your cameras and put on your best smile. So we'll give everyone about 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds to freshen up and also to turn on your cameras. Yes. Okay. So we'll wait for, yeah, we can see, so good to see all these faces this morning. All right, so I'll probably wait for a few more seconds for the rest. Okay. I think seems like that's about it. Okay, so now we're still waiting for people to turn on their cameras. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, so maybe we can get everyone to smile, and while we take a picture. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. All right. Okay. Looks like we are done. Okay. So okay, thank you everyone for joining our talk today. Sadly, this has come to an end. The talk has come to an end, but we have exciting news for everyone, and that will be we will be having another equip talk on the 4th of October at 10 a.m. in the morning by Mr. 𝗕𝗏𝗟𝗏𝗧𝗏, and he'll be sharing about design thinking. So be sure to mark your calendars and make sure you check out our social media to know more about this talk. So everyone is welcome to join us for our informational talk. So be sure to follow our social media so that you can keep up and also look forward to our upcoming events and talks. All right, so thank you everyone for spending your time with us this morning. We truly appreciate your presence, and thank you, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much, Chee Seng, for giving us this talk, and we look forward to seeing everyone. All right, thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.